Mike Pence became the first of the growing list of GOP presidential candidates to visit Ukraine this past week. The former vice president meeting with Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky in Kyiv. Pence also received a briefing on human rights violations committed at the hands of Russian forces, including allegedly those involving children. And he also toured several locations where the atrocities occurred. Joining us now to discuss his reactions to the meeting with the Ukrainian president and seeing the devastation firsthand, former Vice President and current 2024 presidential candidate, Mike Pence. Mr. Vice President, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Tom. Thanks for having me on.
Sir, why did you feel that it was important to go, and what did you hope to accomplish with this visit?
I believe America is the leader of the free world. We're the arsenal of democracy. Since the days of Ronald Reagan, we've had a policy that came to be known as the Reagan Doctrine, which was, if you're willing to fight the communists in your country, we'll give you the means to fight them there so we don't have to fight them here. And I've been a strong supporter of U.S. military aid to Ukraine. During the Trump-Pence administration, we reversed Barack Obama's policy of no military aid to Ukraine. We gave him Javelin missiles and gave him the means. But ever since Vladimir Putin authorized that unprovoked and unconscionable invasion into Ukraine, I've stood very strong on the vital importance of American support. And I have to tell you, meeting with President Zelensky, meeting with some of the soldiers who fought back that initial invasion just north of Kyiv in the woods. They used American Javelin missiles to turn those tanks back. And then meeting with people that described to me the extraordinary human rights abuses and really acts of evil. I left more determined than ever to be a voice for strong military support and to help explain to the American people that we're not there for the reasons Joe Biden says, some gauzy speeches about democracy in the world. We're there because it's in the interest of the United States of America to support Ukraine when they repel Russian invasion. And also, I really believe that it will send a deafening message to China that America is going to lead the free world and provide support to anyone that would be subject to attempts to use military force to redraw international lines. So it's in our national interest. The Ukrainian military is fighting hard. They're making progress. I mean, think about it, Tom. In less than a year and a half, Russia has gone from the second most powerful military in the world to the second most powerful military in Ukraine. That's real progress, and it's because America has been there. Even though the Biden administration has been too slow, they've been there from go. We just got to give them what they need to finish the job, and I believe they will.
Let me ask you about that, Mr. Vice President. Do you believe that this war could have been avoided had President Biden effectively used our military assets to deter the conflict before it started? In part, do you lay some of the blame here at his feet?
Well, we have peace through strength, Tom, and you're actually the first person to raise the issue of deterrence to me, and I commend you for it. Because the fact is that our administration was the only administration in the 21st century where Russia didn't even attempt to redraw international lines by force. That's because we invested in our military as never before. We canceled the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. Our military not only took down ISIS, but took down 100 Wagner forces troops in Syria without one American casualty. We demonstrated American strength, and Vladimir Putin stayed on his side of the border. Under the Biden administration, Joe Biden comes in and frankly, he goes back into Nord Stream 2 with a policy of appeasement. He starts begging Iran to go back in the Iran nuclear deal, and then that disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan. That the blame for which lays squarely at the Commander-in-Chief Joe Biden's feet. That withdrawal from Afghanistan, I'm confident it emboldened the enemies of freedom and has unleashed war in Eastern Europe. Peace comes through strength. Weakness arouses evil. I really believe had our administration been in power, Russia would have never crossed into Ukraine. But they're there now, and I think it's absolutely essential that America continue to stand with them. And to the point that I make, it's in our national interest to see Ukraine defeat and repel the Russian invasion. Europe will be more secure, and America will be more secure as a result.
Mr. Vice President, the Biden administration has been criticized for its piecemeal approach to providing weapons to Ukraine, which critics say has prolonged the conflict. What would you have done differently at the outset here, sir?
Well, the first thing I would have done is I wouldn't have canceled military support to Ukraine, what Joe Biden did the day he took office. It was no real surprise. Remember, the Obama-Biden administration would only send blankets and military meals to Ukraine. We came in, we reversed that. We provided them with Javelin missiles, other military hardware that made them better equipped for the invasion that would come a year and a half ago. But Joe Biden comes into office, he canceled that military aid. He didn't start it up until after the invasion, and he sent this ambiguous message. He said something like America would not respond if it was a small invasion. I mean, Tom, I must tell you, it was just extraordinarily, unwise for the president not to send a clear and unambiguous message that we would provide the Ukrainian military what they need. But I would tell you what I heard from President Zelensky and from his military commanders is that the Biden administration continues to slow walk military aid. They promised 33 Abrams tanks in January. Now they're telling the Ukrainians they won't have them until September. They've approved the training of F-16 pilots, but now they're telling them they're not going to approve the delivery of F-16s until January. You know, Joe Biden says we're there as long as it takes. Well, Tom, my attitude is it shouldn't take that long. We're the most powerful economy and powerful military in the world. We've only spent 3% of our defense budget in support of Ukraine, and we've achieved the extraordinary progress we've seen there. They need to speed up the delivery of tanks, of missiles, of F-16s, and I believe Ukraine can fight and win this war.
And now, is that how you would end the war? Former President Trump has claimed that he would end the war in Ukraine. Sir, watch this, please.
When I was president, the world was stable and calm because America was respected and strong. Now, as we see in Russia and all of these other places, this whole world is on fire. This world is on fire. Before I even arrive at the Oval Office, I will have the horrible war between Russia and Ukraine totally settled. I'll have it done in 24 hours.
Yeah, he said 24 hours, sir. It's just, he's not provided any details exactly on how he's going to do that. So I will put the question to you, though. How would you end the war in Ukraine?
Well, again, I think of what Ronald Reagan said about the philosophy of America toward the old Soviet Union. He said, here's our goal. We win, they lose. And I'm saying nothing different. I think if we speed up the delivery of tanks, armaments, rockets, and F-16s, what I heard from President Zelensky and the Ukrainian military is they can win this fight. And by driving Russia out, that will not only check Russian aggression, and we can see that this invasion into Ukraine is already dividing their military. It's already dividing the people of Russia, as well as claiming innocent lives on both sides of the border. But I also think it sends a deafening message to China that the United States and the wider world will not tolerate the redrawing of international lines by force.
Mr. Vice President, I just have a couple minutes left with you, and I have to pivot to the landmark rulings at the Supreme Court this week, including affirmative action and President Biden's student loan giveaway, dealing several blows to the American left. 3 Trump-Pence administration appointed justices helped make the difference in some of those cases. You were part of that nomination process. Talk to us about that involvement and your reaction to these historic rulings.
Well, Tom, thanks for acknowledging. I did have the privilege of interviewing all the finalists for all 3 appointments to the Supreme Court and offering my counsel to the president at the time. And I must tell you, like every other conservative American, I couldn't be more proud of this new conservative majority on the Supreme Court of the United States just this week, living up to our hope and aspiration to apply the law as written, to check the unconstitutional student loan forgiveness by the Biden administration, to end race-based admissions at our college and move us toward that aspiration of a colorblind society, and ultimately, maybe most important of all, an affirmation of the freedom of religion of every American, of every faith. It just reminds you that elections have consequences.
Certainly.
And the appointment of those 3 justices of the Supreme Court and the way that they're delivering on our constitutional rights and on our highest ideals is a source of great pride to me.
Mr. Vice President, finally, and I just have a minute left with you, polling data still shows former President Donald Trump leading the pack for the nomination, and by a pretty wide margin, though there are some out there who are concerned about his electability in a general election. Americans for Prosperity, a Koch-funded organization, is putting about $70 million to drive that message. Do you share that view, and then why do you consider yourself to be more electable than Mr. Trump at this point?
Well, let me be clear. I'm running for President of the United States. I'm not running against anybody. You know, I think this country's in a lot of trouble, Tom. I mean, President Joe Biden has weakened this country at home and abroad. And as my wife and I prayed and reflected on this moment, we just felt called to step forward and bring my experience as Vice President of the United States during 4 consequential years, my experience as a governor of the state of Indiana, where we cut taxes, expanded educational choice, had record employment, and my experience as a conservative leader in the Congress to bear on this moment. And we're going to take that case all across Iowa, New Hampshire, all the early states. And I look forward to making that case through the summer and taking our case to the debate stage and ultimately to the Republican voters when the caucus and the primaries get underway. And I'm very encouraged at the response we've gotten around the country. People can go to MikePence2024.com, find out more about it, and we'd welcome their support as well.
All right, Vice President Mike Pence, thank you so much, sir, for making time for us. Very much appreciated.
Thank you, Tom. Good to be with you.